Hello, and welcome back to the Decipher podcast. I'm Dennis Fisher. I'm here with my colleague, Lindsey O'Donnell Welch. We're back. Lindsey, it's been so long.
It's been so long. So happy to be back.
I know. I'm so happy to see you. It's so good to be doing this with you again. We have taken a break from Decipher. It's been almost a year, honestly. I think the last Decipher podcasts and videos and written content was in September of last year, September 2024. So, I've gotten a ton of questions. I know you have too, about like where we are, what we're doing, all that kind of stuff. So, we are going to do a little bit of explaining about what happened, where we've been, what we've been doing, and what we have planned. So the short version is we both left Cisco last fall, and Decipher kind of went dormant at that time, along with the podcast and video feeds, obviously. And in those intervening months, we've been working with Cisco to get Decipher for ourselves, which we now own. Cisco was very helpful and were, very nice and very, very great about letting us get the domain and the brand and the trademarks and all of that from them, which is amazing. It took some time just because, there was a lot of legal stuff involved and a lot of technical stuff too, which is why it took us a while. But we're still dealing with some of that. But so, we've both been doing things since then, but not Decipher things. So we're super happy to be back.
Yeah. And like you said, props to Cisco for, kind of letting us take this on our own now and move forward with it. And excited to see where things go with Decipher now that we can continue to carry the torch on our own.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I mean, I know for me, maybe even a little more than you, like it was, Decipher is such a big part of what I've done in my career that I was just, really eager to get back to doing this. I mean, we've been, emailing and texting and talking to each other over the last few months, but we haven't been working directly together. So it's been a little different. I was doing freelance work for about, I guess, like 6 months before I started a new full-time job about a month ago at Beyond Trust, which is amazing. I love it. And I know you were kind of doing the same thing before you took a new full-time role as well.
Yeah. I'm currently full-time at Huntress, which is awesome. And so I think it's, good to note that we both do have full-time jobs, but we want to continue this outside of our jobs. And, there's a lot of exciting things that I think can happen here. So.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to sort of getting everything back up and running. We're working on getting the site back up. It'll be in a different form. It won't look exactly the way that it did when you last saw it a few months ago. It'll be a different version. It'll still have the Decipher look and feel, though. It'll still look like Decipher things. And we've got some different things planned. So, I think even though it's only been 8 or 9 months, I do feel like the media landscape has changed a bit in that time, in the security world and overall as well. So, we're going to have to sort of find our way. But, I think our original mission and ideas for Decipher still hold the same, democratizing information about security and sort of highlighting the good stories and not so much the bad.
Yeah. And I know, like, Dennis, you were there from the origins, really, of Decipher, you and Famita. I came in a little later, but, like, I think it might be helpful just for you to, like, shed some more light on, why the mission behind Decipher and how it was created and kind of how that fits into where we're at now and how we hope to, move ahead here.
Yeah, it was, we started it in, I think it launched in 2018. It did launch in 2018 at RSA, was the sort of the big coming out party for it. We had launched it a few weeks earlier in the spring of that year. Famita and I had joined Duo Security in the fall of 2017. We were both doing different things. And we knew each other, but we had never worked directly together. We just knew each other from being in, the security media world for so long, at
Yeah.
different places, but we had never worked directly together, and we were friends, but we weren't like extremely tight friends. We just, had a lot of respect for one another, and we come from very different backgrounds, and we have very different sort of, I think, outlooks on it, on things, different personalities, which is great. Like, I'm definitely more of an extrovert. Famita is,
Yeah.
a very nice and welcoming and happy person, but she definitely
Yeah.
doesn't want to always be the last one at the party.
Yeah.
um
These are really
so
good personalities, I think, to have on a team, and on,
yeah,
especially on a media team. So,
I think so. We meshed really, really well because we also have different takes on the same story. We might look at the same thing two completely different ways, which is just a reflection of our backgrounds and, our experiences. But yeah, it was great. And the idea was not ours. It was, the brainchild of, Doug Song and Jono, who were the founders of Duo. And they had reached out to each of us separately over the years to say, hey, we've got this idea for this media property. We'd like to, I didn't know they were talking to her. I don't think they knew, or she knew that they were talking to me, and it was separate. And then they ended up hiring Wendy Nather, who was a very close friend of both of ours,
yeah.
earlier that year. And at RSA in 2017, before we joined, I clearly remember I was standing in the W lobby bar, and Wendy was standing there with our mutual friend Meredith Corley,
Mhm.
and who was the head of PR at Duo at the time and now at Cisco. And Wendy did like this sort of like, I see you, like, we're going to talk later motion. I was like, oh, what did I do? And she was like, no, no, it's good. And so it just kind of went from there. And I remember, I think like right before, it was kind of a long process to
Mhm.
actually get us both hired and all that kind of stuff. And we were in planning meetings before we were even hired about what the site would look like and all that kind of stuff. And I remember sitting in one of those meetings with, Doug, Jono, and Pete Baker, who was like the brains behind Decipher, like the whole brand design and
Yeah.
aesthetic and all of that kind of stuff, along with a whole bunch of other talented designers. And we were trying to think of like what the name for it might be. We didn't have any of that yet. And Pete just like was like, "Oh, hang on, let me share my screen real quick." And he just put up on the like screen in the conference room, it was like, I came up with this last night, and it was literally like the logo you see behind me right now, like the name, like all of this. And I was like,
No big deal.
what?
Like,
Are you shitting me? Where did you come? What? I mean, the logo wasn't exactly the same, but the idea was there, but the name never changed. And then later in that process, Famita came up with the tagline "Security Without Fear," which was
mhm.
just like something that she wrote in like a planning Google Doc somewhere, and everybody was just like, "Oh shit,
That's,
that's it." It's
yeah.
brilliant, and I don't even think she's ever really taken credit for that. And it was perfect because that was exactly what we were trying to do. Is, even though the aesthetic of the site itself was like kind of like blacks and reds and greens, we were trying to like highlight the brighter side of security, like the
Mhm.
defenders, what they're having successes with, the fun stories, the good stories, and not just like, as we've talked about so many times, like everything is terrible, everything's broken. Like, okay,
Yeah.
it's still gonna be broken tomorrow. Like, can we like can we just like do something else here? And she and I had both been in security journalism for long enough that we had like literally been there, done that with all of that
Like,
stuff.
you guys know, yeah, what you're talking about, and you know, like, you've been through all of it.
Yeah, and we had been
Yeah.
through every version of every hype cycle from,
Yeah.
2001 onward. So we were more interested in, bringing people, and not like the dorky like John Krasinski, like, here's some good news tonight, like that kind of thing, but like there are people like having success out there. There are people doing good things, and we wanted to highlight some of that stuff. And I think that's what we did, and what we always tried to do. And then after you came on, when Famita decided to leave. I thought it was, a perfect fit as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what really drew me to Decipher was, I mean, at the time before Decipher, I was working at Threat Post, which you also, if following in your footsteps there. But um, it was interesting though because when I was working there, there was a bit of a like I guess like process that you fall into as a reporter, at most media websites or organizations where you find yourself writing about the breach of the day, the ransomware incident of the day,
Oh yeah.
this is what happened, this is, how they got in, and the company released a statement, we take your security seriously, and then move on.
Yeah.
And as a security reporter, that really started to honestly just become repetitive. But like beyond that, I didn't feel like I was getting a lot of um, like I didn't feel like I was getting a lot out of the job, because the reason I got into cybersecurity reporting was so that it was to educate people, but also to like really show why things were happening, like what the trends were, like
Yeah.
how, and try to move the needle really on like how we could stop these things from happening. So when I was reading, when I saw what Decipher was doing, you guys weren't just following like the you know top hit security breach like a lot of other websites were, but really you guys were trying to, the mission was, like you said, to like shed light on the wins in addition to kind of the punches, and then also look at the why, or like the culture, or all these other really important aspects, in my opinion, of um, the security space, and like the people that go into security, and kind of the teams and everything else. So I think those are really important pieces to when reporters are covering this landscape. And I don't think that a ton of other publications do that even now, still, especially now, because a lot of companies, because I would say the average reader has a pretty short attention span, um,
Yeah.
especially now with AI and everything else. So
Yeah. It's
um,
crazy.
so I think that's part of the reason why I joined, but then also like fast forward to today, like why this is something that's important to me to kind of continue what we were doing before, and to try to like continue to shed light on those themes and topics, and continue to like write about the things that matter and the important things for people to be aware of. Because I really do, like, I read a lot of security news websites, and it's informative to get the news of kind of the week.
Yep.
But I do think that there's still that missing piece of like diving a little bit deeper and trying to really understand some of these trends that are driving why these breaches are happening, why the same things keep happening, like
Yeah.
like a behavioral level, like why do people keep clicking the link, or like why are ransomware actors relying on the same exact things to compromise organizations, like
Yeah.
just questions like that.
I know. Why does everything that we were writing about, 8 or 10 years ago still work now? Is
Yeah,
kind of like an existential question that everybody in our industry jokes about. Is like, oh well, we'll always be employed because there's always going to be attackers and there's always going to be victims, and people will always click on links and they'll always say okay to the MFA push after a few times or whatever it happens to be. But yeah, those are the kind of like top level like psychological questions that haven't changed in the 24 years that I've been doing this, a few
yeah,
less for you, but yeah, I mean, but those are the same questions that like our friends who are CISOs or work in the government or, you know, work in a SOC ask themselves all the time or ask each other in, Slack groups or Signal groups. They're like, guys, have you found anything that works for XYZ? Or what do you guys do about like educating users not to, do X, Y, or
yeah,
Z? And, these are all very trained and smart people that are still struggling with these things. It's not this the stupid adage of like humans are the weakest link is like, okay, it's so simplistic. Like, yeah, obviously somebody needs to click on a link for most of this stuff to happen or whatever. That doesn't help anyone. Like, how does it help us for you to keep saying that and put it on your slides at,
Yeah.
at RSA every year? Let's come up with some answers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, instead of why are humans the weakest link, like, why aren't the tools in place for, to like better protect the system or
Yeah.
something to like shift that responsibility.
Why? Yeah.
It's,
Why has
yeah,
security not really advanced in a quarter century since things really started to ramp up? Like, why are we still doing the same things? You know,
right.
trying to find phishing emails or whatever it happens to be. Now we're trying to throw nation state actors out of our telecom infrastructure, which was, they were there 25 years ago. We just didn't know it. Um, but,
Yeah.
it's not all that much has changed, which, is interesting, but also kind of depressing at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, and to your point, like I feel like you've really seen that, like having covered the space for so long. But it's interesting too, like, you know, being both on the user side and then also on the side of, reporting all this,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, gr- growing up, like when I was, using, AOL or the internet or whatever, like you just like the way that you approach, just how you use all these systems is like, it's very much human behavior, and like you just kind of do what you need to do. It's like functionality over security. So there's
Yeah.
a whole like mess of different factors that go into all of this, and like I think that those all of these pieces that we're talking about, like it's a really important context inside cybersecurity reporting that a lot of people forget about, or like that, it's not clearly, fully like fleshed out in terms of what that means from a contextual perspective. So, yeah, I think that's something that is another interesting piece of kind of where we're at with the security media nowadays.
Yeah. And I also feel like we're in the position of being so embedded in this on a day-to-day basis for so long that a lot of times like we don't really consciously think about how difficult most of this is for just normal users to go about their daily lives and not get owned and still be able to
Yeah.
do their jobs, or do their online banking or, order concert tickets or whatever it is. Those are like, I get email or texts from my kids all the time about like like MFA prompts to get into their school email accounts, or like, especially when I worked at an MFA company, they were like, this is so stupid, why do I have to do that? I was like, that's paying your tuition, shut up, just
Yeah.
just push the button and get along, go on about your day.
Yeah.
But it is like there's all these hurdles that we just sort of like, we know how to navigate them and people have become accustomed to them, but I don't know that we've made anything simpler or easier for most people in their daily lives. In a lot of cases we've made it more complex.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah. I agree there. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if that's going to get any better anytime soon, but
Probably not, yeah. But at least, your kids are relying on MFA. I count that as a win
yeah,
right now, even if it's forced or mandated by their school. At least the school is, promoting it.
yep,
And, same with anyone at different companies. Like hopefully that's a security measure that
it's true.
companies are, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, there's still plenty of banks that don't enforce it, so they
yeah,
they make it an option. You can use it if you
wild.
want. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's completely insane. But I mean, that's kind of like what we've been talking about. Is like, it's what's are we
Yeah.
making progress here?
Right.
But
Exactly.
you know, hopefully we'll continue to highlight some of the progress we are making as we move along. And I think you and I both love doing the podcast and the videos. That was one of the things that I know when you first started at Decipher, you were like, I've done some podcasts, but I don't know if it's like my favorite thing on earth. Like you were
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it's I don't love it. I like to write. I was like, yeah, I know. Me too. But you're good at podcasts, trust me. And
Yeah.
I think you got a little more comfortable with it as you went along, especially after we started doing like more video and stuff like that. Um, and I think you've always been really good at it, but you got more comfortable over the years as things went along. So I think, that's where we're going to focus a lot of our attention too.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, and it's a good way, I think, to connect with kind of your audience. I mean, everyone's on Twitter, or on Blue Sky or whatnot now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, video is a really good way to kind of show face, literally. So,
I know, which is a weird thing for, to like trained print journalists to be like, oh yeah, it's time to do a video. Like, okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Which would have given me a panic attack, like 15 years ago, but
yeah,
that's how it goes. Yeah. So in our outline and in our discussions about what we wanted to do and talk about, you had thrown in there what were some of like our favorite events that we've covered over the years. I'll let you start. We've gone to a lot of the same events together or separately, but the same things. But I'm interested to hear if you have any like non traditional answers to what that might be.
I feel like, well, I mean, this is not non-traditional, unfortunately, but like Black Hat last year was pretty up there for me because if you remember, one thing that I got to do there was, well, we both got to shoot a ton of videos there. And
Yeah.
I remember getting to shoot this panel video with a bunch of CISOs, including Merritt Bear and Netta Pitt and Danielle Snyder. And we talked about a bunch of the top issues that CISOs faced at the time, everything from supply chain attacks or third party issues, security issues, all the way over to kind of the SEC cyber regulations, which at the time was a lot bigger of an issue than I would say I've seen this, over the past 6 months or whatever. That was really cool. I mean, it was a great way to kind of convene all these different security, these people who are leading up security teams in their companies and looking at these different issues and trying to contemplate like the best way to approach them, but also who had a really good understanding of what the inherent challenges were when you're approaching these issues. Because
Right.
it's really easy to look at a supply chain attack and say like this is what you need to do to stop it, but like the complexity, like the amount of complexity and like even just organizational and operational impacts that go into trying to secure that type of issue is just crazy to me. So that was a really fun panel for me. And then that was just a really that was one of my favorite Black Hats because we got to see all our friends and
Yeah,
it was just a good time.
it was. Yeah, that was a really good time. I think that was the first and only Black Hat that you and I went to together, at least
Oh,
at
yeah.
Decipher.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a weird thing to say, but it's true. Uh, and yeah, I mean, some of my best memories are from Black Hat as well. I think the one that sticks out to me the most is I should have looked up what year it was, but the year this probably would have been before you started going. Um, the year that Barnaby Jack did the ATM hacking talk,
Mm-hmm.
and brought an actual ATM up on stage and got it to spit out what it was fake money. It was actually invites to their party that night, which is pretty funny. But they were like looked like fake dollar bills or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can remember sitting in the front row, me and Ryan. We were both at Threpos at the time, sitting in the front row, and we both knew Barnaby pretty well. And he had told us like, you guys want to be there, like get there early. This is going to be cool. So, normally reporters, you go stand in the back or whatever, and you like, talk shit and like, don't really pay attention to, you take a few notes and write a story or whatever. But we were like, Barnaby had a track record, so we were like, this will be pretty good. And he got up there and did that. The place went absolutely bananas. It was like literally like a concert. There was, it was one of the bigger rooms at the old Caesars where they used to do Black Hat, and there was a couple thousand people in there. But it's one of those things now where, like, if you ask somebody, like, I've probably had 8,000 people tell me that they were in that room. So, like, it's one of those things where there can't possibly have been that many people there. Um,
Yeah.
but it was extremely cool. It was one of those things that, like, people now call stunt hacking. But I don't think that term was really around at the time, because this is before, like, Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek had, like, driven Andy Greenberg into a ditch remotely or done any of that kind of stuff. So it was kind of one of those, like, really wow moments where you're like, this is wild. How would you even figure out how to do any of that? He just, like, decided he was going to reverse engineer the firmware on this brand of ATMs. And, he, I forget the exact details, but you can't really just buy an ATM, like, for good reason. And he, even in 2009, I want to say this was, or 10, I can't recall. He somehow, I don't remember how he actually got one, but somebody, it was probably him and someone else, drove it to Vegas from wherever they bought it, which is, I don't even want to know where they bought it. It was probably some,
Questionable.
yeah, some warehouse in, like, the San Fernando Valley or something. I don't even know. But I just remember hearing years later that they had bought it and, like, somehow driven it to Vegas and then got it up on stage and did all that. But
That's awesome.
it's something that I still think about all the time, every time I go to Black Hat. And,
Yeah.
Obviously people still talk about it all these years later.
Yeah. That sounds like really fun. I feel like Black Hat has changed a lot over the years, especially since 2009, but
Yeah.
you'll still get, some good stuff going on, but
Yeah. It's
not
just,
to that level.
it's so big now, like everything else. It's a trade show, and it used to be a conference with crazy shit like that happening. And, like, the Pony Awards, which somebody, I don't know, I forget who it was, recently posted something on Twitter about linking to a vulnerability that was like, oh, this is the bug that created the Pony Awards. And it was one of the ones that got a pony that year. I can't recall which one it was, but again, I remember sitting there in the first Pony Awards, and there was just, like, a bunch of security researchers standing around watching other researchers literally get, like, spray painted rubber My Little Pony trophies for, like,
That's
best
great.
bug, or, like, worst vendor response. Best song, like, was always a funny one. But that's what, Black Hat used to be. And now, yeah, I mean, yeah, it got bought. So it's a trade show. That's what happens.
Yeah, it is funny because I've always felt that, you've been in this, you've been covering this for a long time. And I think you were there before cybersecurity really became, like, industrialized, or, like,
Oh yeah.
became
Yeah.
a profession. And so you really have that sense, I think, of, the kind of, like, the culture and everything that goes behind that. Whereas I came in I came in pretty much, like, very much later, I would say. And I've always felt like I've focused a bit more on kind of the the strategic part of things, or,
Mm-hmm.
like, really looking at, to my own answer, like, CISOs and kind of the challenges that they face in that side of the coin. So it is interesting, like, how those parts work in terms of what we have covered at Decipher and what we
Yeah.
look at, and how we approach a different event, different events or incidents that happen.
No, it's
I've always,
true. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, we definitely have, like, me and Famita, you and I are, we have more similar backgrounds than Famita and I do, but we have different mentalities of how we approach things, and just sort of different ideas about, like, just creative story ideas that you come up with. And I'm like, damn, I wouldn't have thought of that. or, things that I might come up with just because I'm old and I was like, oh, I remember this from like 2006 and like
Yeah.
it seems like it's coming back around or something like that. Um, and everything is cyclical in this industry, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the industrialization of security is something that's a very real, like, I almost saw it happen like within about like a 6 or 8 month period after 9/11. That's essentially when it happened, is because people that were in infosec, most of them were like the sort of 80s and 90s, grew up, maybe before the internet was a real thing, on BBSs, doing all that kind of stuff, and just got interested in security and were good at breaking things and figuring out how to fix them again. Even the ones that had corporate jobs, like some of the guys from the Loft or other folks that we know, that's how they grew up. And then they had a lot of those internal network security or, endpoint security jobs, that such as they were in 2001. And then
Yeah.
after 9/11, it was like everybody just decided that like physical security was going to merge with cybersecurity and it was going to be this whole thing. And people tried to do that. It never really worked out. But that's when
Mhm.
like RSA turned into like the three ring circus that you see now. In '01 and '02, it was a ghost town because it was like 4 months after 9/11 and nobody was
Mhm.
getting on airplanes. But in the first one I went to in 2001, I honest to God, I bet there weren't more than 500 people there, including vendors, like maybe seven. I couldn't be that
That must
many.
have been so nice.
Yeah, it was cool, but it was also like still like a cryptography conference, and I was just like, oh man, this is a bunch of math people. I don't really know anything about that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also where I made a lot of contacts that I still have now. But it did, like, that was kind of the dividing line of when things tipped over from infosec is this cute little thing that we let those nerds over there do, and now it's like a corporate priority and we're going to throw a bunch of money at it, and now there's 8,000 infosec vendors whereas there used to be like 20. you know so
Yeah. It's interesting how it has continued to change because I think about that a lot, and from a media perspective, how
yeah,
reporting has changed going from that group, that pre 9/11 type of security group, to more of the 2010s, and now in the 2020s, like how things continue to change. It's crazy to see. you know I think that I have a lot of questions about the people coming into cybersecurity now and what they're interested in from a media proper, like a media website, and kind of the type of mediums that they like to look at, and maybe it's watching videos on
yeah.
TikTok or something, but or like consuming memes or something like that. But
TikTok's
it's
going to be your responsibility. I'm sorry, Linz.
yeah,
That's it. That's
yeah,
all.
I know, yeah. But like it's interesting to see. And the other thing that's changed too is, to your point, before, like in the beginning, as you said, like there was a little bit of, okay, let's put those people in the corner and they'll be in charge of security and like tinkering and whatnot.
Yeah,
And now, like, I will say there's a lot more, um, I would say the audiences are a lot more broader, people who are kind of interested in what's going on with cybersecurity. And, if you're in any sort of business, like people even outside of the IT team are going to be passing along articles that have to do with breaches or things like that.
yeah,
Whether that is like, comms teams, or maybe, um, even legal teams, things of that nature. So I think there is such a um, big, widening of the audience now too, where it's interesting from our perspective, because we've always focused not just on security, but like in some cases, like more technical aligned rating. So
yeah,
like how can you connect the dots so you can speak both towards those more security technical aligned audiences, but then also look at those broader audiences, because it's so important that they also be involved in kind of what's going on, because security really, it impacts everyone, I would say. So important for everyone to kind of be aware of, what's happening and how to protect themselves. So
Yeah,
yeah.
which was not the case even as recently as, say 8 or 10 years ago, probably around the time that you were getting into this.
Yeah.
Security was still like a pretty niche topic. It would show up on the front page of, the Wall Street Journal, or New York Times every once in a while when something really bad happened, like
Mhm.
Stuxnet or something like that.
Yeah. Like the
But
Sony.
the Sony
Yeah.
hack, perfect, yes, things like that. But other than that, it didn't get a ton of national coverage, like unless literally the lights went out somewhere and everybody just assumed it was a cyber attack, and it never actually was a cyber attack. It was, some small woodland creature or somebody tripped over a plug or something. But now the Wall Street Journal has like two really, really good cybersecurity reporters. New York Times, Washington Post has Joe Mann and other folks. So it's definitely a national security story now, and I mean it's been that way for a long time. It's just taken, I think, a while for not just the folks in DC, but executives and other folks to realize that the people running utilities, the people running you know food producers that are getting hit, the people running airlines that are getting hit, all that kind of stuff, healthcare companies that are, big targets for all these nation state actors and cybercrime groups too. So it's evolved, and I think that evolution is continuing to accelerate. The the more things change, the more things change. Like they just keep changing at a more rapid rate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, now is a good time to relaunch Decipher, just with all those changes happening. And I'm excited, kind of, as we start, moving forward and trying to kind of tap into all this, all the different things going on. And I think that people really want to be educated and learn more. So yeah, I'm pumped.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're going to be doing is podcasts and videos, obviously. And part of that is we're going to go back and redo some of the hacker movie podcasts that we did in the past. You never really got to do too many of those. A lot of those we did
Oh,
before you got here.
yeah.
But because of the way things worked, those old podcasts and videos are going to disappear. Some of them are already gone, but that's just that was part of this, and that's okay. It gives us a chance to go back and look at these movies, like War Games and Hackers and Swordfish and some of the absolutely ridiculous stuff that's come out recently, like that I cannot wait to get into. That honestly looks like, you joke about like AI generated movie scripts. Some of these are literally definitely written by AI.
Yes.
There was a movie, I think, right maybe a year ago that you and I both saw separately. And I remember you texting me, I think it's called Heart of Stone.
Oh my God, yes.
And it has Gal Gadot, right?
Yes. I
Okay.
think so. I think it was Gal.
An absolute like world historic, movie star, like without question. Like freaking Wonder Woman is in this movie, and it's about AI, and it is just I couldn't possibly tell you what it's about. I have no idea what it's about, but it involves hacking and computers and like a physical AI thing that sits in a warehouse somewhere. I don't know, but the point is we're gonna have some fun with those too. So
Yeah.
um,
The ridiculousness of it all. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm interested to see, because we're from different generations. Like there's a group of movies that, people from my generation are like, it's like the canon for them, like War Games, Hackers, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which we will absolutely do again. The Conversation, some other movies. But for folks your age, I don't know what the sort of like, I'm sure they've all seen those movies, but those aren't the movies that you grew up with.
Yeah. I don't think that we had anything. I don't think, I mean, I could be wrong, but we've had anything that really encapsulates, I would say, like what those movies have captured.
Yeah.
Uh, I feel like the only thing that I could really think of is Mr. Robot, which is a TV show,
Yep.
and that, by the way, is now on Netflix again. So I plan to go rewatch that instantly, and so
Yeah.
very excited about that. But yeah, I feel like I'm still waiting for a movie that does as good a job as like some of those older ones did, and really trying to capture that essence.
It might be a little hard now just because, in the 80s, computers were still sort of exotic. Like everybody didn't have one sitting in their bedroom, like Ferris Bueller having one, or the kid from War Games, Dave
Yeah,
Reitman having a computer was like, what? What?
yeah.
That's crazy. That dude has a computer. So, but now it's, everybody's got 10 computers. So it's a little more
Was
difficult.
Yeah, well, and like yeah, their phones and like
Yeah.
Apple Watch and everything else.
Yeah. It's really hard. And so I think the movies tend to err on the side of like parody more than like, you know,
Exactly it. Yeah, it's yeah.
it's tough. It's tough. So
Am I like, is this misinformation, or was there like supposed to be a War Games 2 or something? Like there was going to be a sequel.
there's a direct to video War Games 2.
Oh,
Um,
there's one that exists.
oh, it exists.
Oh,
I have never seen it by choice. I won't see it. It doesn't.
yeah. Principle. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. It doesn't involve Matthew Broderick or
Yeah.
um, Jennifer. No, that's not Jennifer Grey. It's Ali Sheedy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't. I only found that out a couple years ago, maybe when we did the first War Games podcast, and I was like, "Oh no, what? Holy shit, that's a nightmare." Yeah. I mean, it's the way that there's like a Ferris Bueller TV show that came out in like the
I did not know that.
late 80s. I want to say like relatively soon after the movie.
Yeah.
Um, didn't work, obviously, but
No. Yeah. I'd imagine Matthew Broderick was not in that one either.
no, I don't remember who was in it. I should know that, but I do remember watching part of it and being like, this isn't, this isn't it. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really recreate the manic, like, goofiness of that movie in a week to
Yeah.
week, show.
Right.
Like, oh, he goes on another crazy adventure. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. And his parents are clueless and his sister hates him. Okay. It works in a movie, but not, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, we're going to be doing some of that. So
For that. Yeah.
yeah, folks out there, if you want to be on one of the Hacker Movie podcasts, let us know. We will be having some guest stars and things like that. Bring back some old friends to help us with those. So yeah. And watch out for the site. It'll be up. It'll be at decipher.sc. It's going to be a bit. We're still working out the technical stuff behind the scenes, as I said, but we're getting there. So the word will get out when it is there. So we'll let everyone know. And we appreciate everyone asking and staying in touch and staying interested for the last few months.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to be back, and yeah, excited.
Yeah. All right, Linz, great to see you as always. And we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.